and welcome to Cosmetics Business in Conversation with Goldn. I am Julia Ray, editor of Cosmetics Business, and it is my great pleasure today to be joined by Udo Eberlein, CEO of Goldn, and Ariana Andrews, who is the company's head of sales and marketing. Hello both, a pleasure to have you here today. Wonderful. So to begin, Goldn is brand new to the beauty scene. So what exactly are you, and who are the people and the team behind Goldn?
Sure, I'll take this one. So thanks for having us here, first of all. Really great to be able to talk about Goldn today. At the highest level, what is Goldn? Goldn is, has been formed to make cosmetics creation easy. We've seen that the process is time consuming. We believe everybody should have the ability to create a product. We see this more and more. It's not just the big brands creating cosmetic products. It's smaller brands and developers that also want to come to market. And we're creating the industry's first digital ecosystem that gives those small and medium-sized enterprises the tools and the resources to build products quickly and to get them to market quickly, keeping in mind all the different things they have to be doing in that process. So the big challenge we also see is that it has to be easy to use and delightful, and that's exactly what we're aiming to do here at Goldn.
Wonderful. It all sounds very fresh and exciting. So what was it about the traditional cosmetic creation process that you guys felt maybe needed that refresh?
So, good question. I think it's really difficult to get to market with a formulation-based product. It's complex and time-consuming. There are many different tools you can use. Some of those are complicated. Some of those are technical. Some of them are too easy or too generic to use. So, managing all the different supplier platforms and all the different suppliers in that chain building up to a product is really difficult. And if you have to think about a new brand, a small brand that may not have all the big resources, and now they have to really work with many different tools, with many different suppliers, and some of those being scattered single initiatives that the suppliers want you to use, that's really difficult. So what happens? What ends up happening? People start Googling, and then they start working their way back from that. And it's just not a streamlined process. And that's why we set out to really build a streamlined and optimized process that's, I'll repeat, easy to use and logical, and presents the right things at the right time so that you can manage your project easily.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think Udo has really underscored something which is key. It's integral to our value proposition, to the why we're doing this, and that is streamlining the process, because the process now, as was stated before, it's complex. It's hard to organize in a manner that is efficient, that's easy to coordinate, because there are people and tasks and phases, project phases that have to be coordinated. These are all the difficulties that we identified on the brand side, but we have also identified similar difficulties on the supplier side. So for any of the industry suppliers in cosmetics and personal care who might be ingredients distributors or manufacturers or graphic artists, coming from really all corners of the cosmetics industry as that relates to product development, they too are experiencing complications, maybe of a different sort, but the complications arise because of that complexity. So the complications and the difficulties that those suppliers face might be not being able to service adequately all of the brands that in fact contact them. So we see a big number, a big rise, a spike in cosmetics companies, in what the industry refers to as a new product developer, whoever that might be. It might not be a cosmetic company. It might be a company from a totally different industry, a grocery store that's getting into private labeling their own products. Some of the ingredients distribution companies themselves also have a need to develop products. So whoever that cosmetic creator might be, going to the industry supply side for solutions, for products, for services, are putting a bit of pressure, if you will, because there's a greater number of these, and the suppliers are struggling to keep up with that greater number. And so it becomes more complex. So we're really bringing a solution that will help the brands initially, but that's going to tie in and help the suppliers too.
Absolutely. So could you maybe tell me about the digitalization part?
Sure. I think it's safe to say that the chemicals industry is largely analog. somewhat inefficient, and digitalization has of course happened in some of the business processes, but a full digitalization, including a business model disruption, really hasn't happened. And why do I say that? If you look at, I mentioned earlier, you have scattered single initiatives that kill the user experience. You don't really have the collaboration. You have single supplier platforms that are competing for the customers. But you also have, on the supply side, them struggling to really highlight differentiating features. And, and there's a lot of manual work that goes into that. My point is, there's not a lot of digitalization because there's no solution focus. There are single initiatives, and there's no business model optimization happened yet, as we've seen in other industries. So I think it really is time for that. And there are some great solutions in the market that go point to point, but nothing that covers this holistically and changes the way business is done. And if you look at the value chain, starting from ingredient supplier all the way on one end to the consumer on the other side, there's a lot that can happen in between, and we intend to tackle that entire process. And that's what we think, with a different business model, that's what we think real digitalization will mean, a solution-based approach versus everybody trying their own thing for themselves and optimizing their e-commerce portal, because e-commerce isn't digitalization. That's one piece of it, right? Communicating with the customer is just one piece of it. There's so many different pieces that have been optimized, but not holistically.
Fantastic. And so how does Goldn Service exactly differ from traditional and other models? And what are the advantages there?
So it's a holistic end-to-end service. You can basically build a product. You can, a cosmetics brand, be it small or medium size. The large ones will have their own. They will have the value chain covered. The L'Oreals of the world. They have all. They're fully digitalized. They have everything they need in-house. But the smaller guys don't, and we allow them to go holistically from end to end, from idea to product all the way. But we also allow them to just come in for a specific one single piece that they want to do. So it's not like you have to always do the whole, product development on Goldn. You can come in for specific parts of it. If you've covered your formulation, let's say you have a formulator, you have your formulation, but you need packaging, you can come in just for packaging. And it really is, in its ideal phase, when you're creating a whole product, it's a workflow engine and it's solution oriented. We always want a result to come out of it. In other words, a product or a sale or a procurement of a certain piece of this. And the product builder that we're launching, that's been launched, is the first part of that, and it's free. So we first enable the small brands to work with something that's standardized, if you will, to make their life easier, so they can go to the supply side and communicate what they need. That's the first part of it. And what we'll do over time is to build out that functionality to provide, as I said, that whole holistic end-to-end service where it's needed.
Yeah, and I would love actually just to elaborate on that last thing that Udo has mentioned, which is that we will build out over time. So I think just to put things in context here, because what Udo is speaking of is our scope. I mean, this is our ambition. This is what our business is building currently, but we're building it incrementally. So we're going to market with the first piece, with the first step of a larger digital ecosystem, and that's what Udo is referring to. Looking at that first piece, just to put things into context, and I think also in some way to manage expectations, what brands will find in effect on Goldn when we go to market is one component that deals already with a very large piece of new cosmetic product development. So that's the ideation stage, that's the planning stage, that's organizing that product development. It's the very beginnings of when a cosmetic creator, that might be a cosmetics company, an aspiring brand, whoever is on that creation side, it's the very beginnings and where they would find themselves if they were not quite yet at the point of reaching out to a supplier, but still doing their homework. So I'm brainstorming, I'm looking on social media, I'm doing my market research to find out what's that product, that ideal product that I'd like to go to market with. What are the components, the people, the tasks, the color scheme, the packaging, all the elements that I have to bring together in that project scope? What are all the descriptive elements that I need as a creator to then be able to go out and interact with anybody in the industry or my team? And that's what Goldn will facilitate in later releases. So yes, we go to market now, and then we'll be releasing continuously over the coming weeks and over the coming months, different features for brands. And then, as we said before, also features that reach out to suppliers so that we're bringing these two together under one roof. And I realize that the scope is big. It's quite a lot to get one's mind around. We're talking about a platform where product development can happen, collaboration can happen, and transactions can happen. So it's big. That's part of the reason it's difficult to get our minds around. It's also a bit challenging, but not impossible, because it doesn't yet exist in the personal care space. Udo alluded to other examples from other industries before. I think as professionals, as people simply living in a digital world, we do see these capabilities on the internet existing: communication, conversation, document sharing, transmission of information, search and finding the right partners, automatic matchmaking, intelligent use of data, so the right people are coming together, so algorithms working to bring me, who's looking for something very specific, to someone who's offering that very specific thing together faster. We're talking about bringing all of that together under one roof. That's the novelty. That's what we haven't seen yet in our space.
And I just want to add something to that. We can do that because we're building it, based on latest software paradigms. We're working with agile software development. So it's not about, I like to cite this example of the Tesla phenomenon, that they brought out a car and they kept building on it versus sitting back, 5 years and figuring out what the perfect electric car would be, and then going to market. But at that time, the market's already rushed past you. So it really is about adding on functionality as we go. So people that come on board now will continue to get more functionality as they go along.
Well, it seems like it already covers a lot of bases there, and that they have a plan to perfect it, which is fantastic. So you mentioned kind of small, medium creators there, and also the suppliers. But who are the people who are primarily going to benefit from Goldn?
So we feel like it's right now it's challenging for individuals or beauty brands to understand what product to create. So with which suppliers. So depending on what criteria and standards and what budget, time frame, market, etc. So for the beginning, we'll start focusing on this segment first, the small creators and the small beauty brands as the first target audience of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and within that group of small creators and beauty brands, I think it's a really nice point to highlight that one of our guiding pillars has been simplicity. What we want to do in that is we want to make Goldn and the platform, the creation process, as accessible to as many people as possible. So what does that mean in practical terms? It means that you don't have to be a chemist in order to use Goldn. You don't have to be a cosmetic formulator. You don't even have to be a professional cosmetic developer working for an established cosmetics company. You can be all of those things, and I think you'll be greatly advantaged in the process because you'll probably have some know-how that you'll be bringing to the platform. But the point is that Goldn will be accessible. It's simple. And we've used this term, simplicity, not because it's what's the word? I hope you'll just let me use this term. And it's not dumbed down by any means, but it's easy to understand. It's accessible. You can be digested, and quite frankly, it's delightful. It's delightful. Yeah, it will be very nice to use. Intuitive. That's another word that comes to mind.
Wonderful. So yeah, it sounds like it's really democratizing that process there, which is great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that, like Tesla, it's going to be, a work in progress to perfect as it goes along. So how can we expect to see Goldn evolve and develop going forward?
Well, we in this first iteration, as I mentioned, we're focused on the smaller brands and the small beauty brands and the creators. Of course, the next big thing is to deeply integrate the suppliers. And we see that, from multiple, first of all, from our first experience building a similar platform, but also from reaching out in the industry and talking to the industry, we see that suppliers have challenges in creating, or to catering to lower quantities and analyzing trends. I think the consumer is driving a lot of the product decisions, and the larger suppliers are getting, more and more removed from that, and they want to see, how do they get grip, because they in turn sell to large suppliers, sell to other large brands or large suppliers. They don't really see what's happening on the ground, if you will, and their business plan doesn't necessarily cater right now to small lots, if you will, and what will enable them to do is a couple of things. We'll first of all, we integrate them deeply, which will enable them to showcase their products and services, showcase themselves. And when I talk about suppliers, I mean not just ingredient suppliers. We're talking about, regulatory and safety consultants, test institutes, technical consultants, contract manufacturers, distributors, marketing services, etc., packaging. So it's all the different sets of suppliers, but it'll allow them to really sell themselves better, display their services better. Also, it'll allow them to see what's happening in the space. They'll get more leads. I mean, it's not, Goldn isn't a lead engine, but of course we can analyze trends and give anonymized trends to the supply side if we choose to do so. But it gives them a digital sales channel, and it allows them to communicate a message with the companies that they want to ultimately sell to directly on the platform in a secure environment, in a project. And ultimately, when we start building it out, we'll include things like RFQing directly through the platform. So they can actually communicate through an RFQ, they can participate in RFQs. And they're doing that now. It's just they're doing it analog. Now we're giving them a digital tool to do so in a secure environment. Of course, one ingredient supplier doesn't want to disclose their pricing so that another ingredient supplier can see it. And we take all that into account, and we build numerous levels of security around that. But I think the key to all of that is, and this goes for both the demand and the supply side, it shouldn't be hard. It should be delightful, easy to use, and logical. And I think that's really what those are the steps. So right now, small creators, next step, integrate vendors. And then the ultimate step is to have a fully automated, data supported workflow engine.
Lovely. Well, I certainly look forward to seeing how the Goldn ecosystem can streamline the beauty product creation process and will continue to evolve going forward. Thank you so much, Udo and Ariana, for joining us today. That was
Thanks for having us.
Lovely. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Fabulous. That was Cosmetics Business in conversation with Goldn. For more interviews with leading companies from across the beauty industry, visit the Cosmetics Business YouTube channel and hit subscribe.